Hello, and welcome to the Wellness Paradigm podcast. This episode is brought to you by The Wellness Paradigm, a holistic health coaching company shifting the way that women understand and heal their bodies. Through bioenergetic testing, functional lab testing, and functional nutrition, we uncover what traditional approaches often overlook. So you can stop guessing, start healing, and finally feel like yourself again. No more one-size-fits-all approaches, just real answers, deep-rooted healing, and the clarity and confidence you deserve to feel incredible. It's time to shift the paradigm of women's health. Now on to the show. Hello and welcome. I am so excited to be bringing on a very special guest all the way from the Netherlands, Egle. Welcome. Egle is a wealth and energy strategist who combines a logical brain and the energetics to help women thrive in their financial well-being. I think this is going to be a really fun podcast for so many women who are very logically brained, but know there's maybe something else going on why they can't break through, whether it's our healing journey, whether it's wanting to build more wealth, whether it's just feeling better and more whole in their bodies. So I'm really excited to kind of dive into Egle's story and also how she helps women kind of break through these subconscious beliefs to, optimize their health and wealth, right? So let's dive in. Egle, welcome. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about who you are and how you kind of got into this world.
Thank you for having me, Shannon. I'm delighted to be here. And my story, I was very ambitious myself. I still am, but in different ways. So I lived in different countries. I worked in the corporate world, in business and in finance. But at some point, I felt like I was hitting a ceiling. And back then, I didn't have the words to describe what was happening to me, but I had some metaphors that came to me. And next to corporate work, I also had my own business as a hobby. And I felt like like a squeezed out tea bag. This was the metaphor that came out to me. It was really funny. And at some other conversations, I felt like I was swimming against the stream. These are the sensations how life felt back then. Yeah. And I didn't know any different way, of course. Later on, I started working with energy as part of my healing journey because I looked into the ways to feel differently and to keep moving. I always wanted to keep moving further, but I didn't know the right way. Doing what I always did, but more of it, didn't feel like it's a solution. So this is how I got into working with energy next to business and financial expertise. And now I combine the two because I now know that a lot what we do every day is based on how we feel and how we think. And most of it, 95%, what we do that is unconscious. So we picked it up from early years and from the collective and through generational patterns of the past. And so this is how I came to do what I do now. I now have a vision and I see that women can thrive while living their fulfillment and feeling fulfilled and feeling well in all aspects of their lives. So definitely health, definitely fulfillment, but also the financial part of their lives.
And I love talking about this because I think financial wellness, especially for women, doesn't get brought up enough. I think there's a lot of recoding that needs to happen with women not feeling worthy, women feeling like they're in a man's world. Men need to make more, they need to be the provider. And I think that subconsciously women hold themselves back a lot. Or if they're trying to, they don't think they are. That subconscious blocks that you're talking about, like to get to that next level. So many of our, people that listen are entrepreneurs, right? I feel like it's always getting to that next level. So I want to talk a little bit about how you would kind of guide somebody or the biggest things that you see happening with women, and how you would kind of help reprogram, to help build that next level of freedom for them.
Yes. So what I see in the collective, there are different behavior models to reach the goals. And most of it happens unconsciously. Oftentimes we're not aware. So one of them is like a good girl archetype is when you try to fit in the expectations from outside to navigate what you would like to achieve in your life. But that doesn't work because expectations from outside is normally not in line what you would hope, expect, or desire for yourself. So there is a lot of double weight on the shoulders. You can see in motherhood, in work, in career, in emotional labor that women tend more to do than men in the family constellations and so on. So trying to fit in the expectations from outside is one. And the other one is what you see also a model of behavior in high achieving women is losing all emotions at all. So becoming this cold, strong woman model, which is in a way disconnected from any feelings, because definitely knowing being in the men's world, it's a survival mechanism because you're judged by showing any sign of emotion. If you're warm, then you're too kind, you're not leader enough. If you're too assertive, then you are not not aggressive enough. So there seems to be no right way. And what I find the solution to be is once we start rewiring these unconscious beliefs and expectations, there comes more space to actually see what the moment is asking from you, what the moment is bringing, and how to connect with the situation. So then things like boundaries come up, and saying no becomes more natural. And with this sensitivity in the body that returns and grows, there's this whole new awareness that comes. So then women can make better choices in a way, who they surround themselves with, or how they allow the dynamics of their relationships to form themselves. So these are all the aspects that rewiring from inside out provides with freedom and choice. It doesn't necessarily mean that it immediately more simple or light. It means that it's more true. And once we see more true on how everything is, we can then start altering and changing and crafting and creating the life that then feels truly fulfilling.
I love that so much because it's not, I think when things feel more aligned, then life does get easy, but you're not trying to do this to make life, easier flow. It's just feeling in that alignment. And then everything else really truly falls into place. I mean, that's the crazy part. I think you probably see this where women try to drive harder, harder, harder. They lead themselves to burnout, right? And it's not until they reach a breaking point where they're like, I have to do something different. And then when they do something different, maybe it's this unraveling this unconscious work. You think, oh, it's going to be sunshines and butterflies. And sometimes it's not, but it's, breaking down these old beliefs that are really difficult because they're so hardwired. And then, but on the other side is, I mean, it's not just like your career gets better. Suddenly opportunities start coming up out of nowhere. Suddenly your connection with your family, your relationship, your kids gets better. Suddenly other things just start, getting better or fall out of place because they were meant to too, right? What would you say for women? How would you lead them into maybe understanding that their subconscious is really playing a role? Because that's, I think, something we very much turn off, right? As you said, emotions shut down. We just cope. How would you kind of lead them into thinking, one, that there's maybe something deeper? And then two, how would you lead them into maybe gently shifting their mindset around things?
So I myself work with specific modalities that it's a form of meditation, in fact, where we are going behind the logical brain that's filtering everything that's not in line with the logic. And normally feelings are not in line with the logic because the logic would say, don't be angry. Well, in fact, body wants to show the boundary, and anger is a sign of boundary that's crossed. So going beyond the judgments of a mind is something that is really helpful and necessary. Now, we can do this in an easy way and painless way with the modalities that I work with, but I also have a lot of tips on how to do it in the day-to-day. So first of all, it starts with self-love and with moving beyond the judgment and towards curiosity. And here I talk about the feelings, really. So we are raised oftentimes, this is collective, this is global, not to be angry, not to maybe resist, not to express our feelings oftentimes because it's also scary for others. While in fact, feelings are always messengers. So if we're feeling angry, it is a sign that there is something happening that is not in line, or if we're feeling frustrated. So becoming aware of the messages of a body through the feelings is already a huge change. And then being compassionate with whatever messages are coming up is essential. So we are talking about the shadow. Shadow part is what we don't want to see in ourselves. We judge in ourselves, and yet by loving it and embracing it is the way we liberate really from feeling stuck or from holding ourselves back. And what I loved also what you just said now is that opportunities seem to come out of nowhere. It has to do with there are so many opportunities all the time around us, but our brain is simply filtering those away because we are feeling unworthy, because we were told it's not for you, because we were told we shouldn't even ask for it. So once we start allowing ourselves to be kinder with ourselves, we see that there is also, we thought we shouldn't even ask, but it turns out that there is so much more possible.
So true. That deep, unwanted, unworthy feeling runs not only deep in your body, but generationally, you know? I think it's so funny when you talk about generational repatterning. People are like, whoa, that's woo. That's so too. And it's like, well, no, but how do you think you are the way you are? It's just basic science of, your parents, you seeing what your mom does, or your mom seeing what their mom does, Do you find a lot of pushback when people, maybe don't believe that that's the thing that's really going to help them?
Yes and no. So it really depends on where in personal growth journey someone is.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying this to compare, or it's more the openness of a mind and
Yes.
the experiences that someone had. So when you see someone who maybe has an accident or something, a divorce or personal happening, then there is this whole worldview that's being shaken up and the identity is being reorganized. That's when the mind opens to accept something new. But in general, the way our minds work, it's designed to filter all the beliefs that are not in line with our worldview to be rejected. That's the only way to process all the information we have. So when something is presented that's really, really far away from current belief systems, the brain logically immediately rejects it. So there is the process of moving closer to being, to accepting it. And then what I feel is that when someone had experienced something, then it's very easy to open up because we can talk for hours. I can explain how it works, and the brain, if it hasn't experienced it yet, it will be hard to believe. But once we have one session, or you have some kind of primary experience with your own body, with your own mind, then it's hard to question. So it's really personal. The amount of curiosity someone has, the amount of necessity someone has, and the amount of experience someone has.
True. We were talking before this podcast about both of us being very logical brained, right? And then going more into this energetic side of things and, realizing that once you see the magic that happens, you can't look back and you can't unsee what you've seen with people's healing. And there's nothing quite like it, but it's definitely, it's something you can't force onto somebody like, hey, believe me, on the other side of things will be great, but you have to do energy work or meditation. People are like, oh no. And I think maybe you can speak to this. What gets you to one place, let's say in your field, your career, or your money, isn't always going to be what's going to get you to the next phase of your life. But I think it's hard to repattern because you're like, but I worked really hard, busted my ass, I burned myself out, and it's okay because I did get to this level of success, right? And so our brain thinks that's the way. And then it's like, but that's not what's going to get you. that made you A to B, but not B to C, right? So how do you rewire the brain into trusting that that you can get to this last level without doing the things that brought you to this first level? Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Here I can just tell what happens in the session, really, because I think it's a great example. We approach by what are you experiencing now and what's holding you back at the moment, what you're feeling. And then we see what's the deep core belief that's there. And it could be a belief, I'm not worth it. A lot of people feel this, they feel alone in it, and yet it's a collective experience. Almost everyone has this belief when we start. And so we go back, then one is the first time when you experience that. And from subconscious, this information simply comes up in the form of meditation. And then we see, so what were the benefits of taking up that belief? And this is how we environ it. Because if we tell, well, just start believing that you're worth it. And I can tell you 5 times, say affirmations every day. But if you don't believe it, you will not believe it, no matter how many times you repeat it. Maybe 10 years would change it. But so once we look what's behind it, so by being unworthy, maybe it was what provided the love of parents. Because by being less or being smaller or not showing our needs, not expressing our emotions, then we were more comfortable for the caretakers. Or we stopped asking for something because then we maintained peace. So once we start to see what were the benefits, and then for the brain, we make it clear. So you can still ask and you can still show your emotions and you can still have love or whatever was the benefit. Then we are disentangling different concepts that were actually entangled together that are no longer useful. So we're liberating this way from the old belief to the new way of being. So we can start see, like you say, the burning out thing as well. We think that by only doing more is the way we can achieve, while actually starting to trust more and delegate more is the way to go if we really want to grow. But if we have this belief that I have to work hard, this will be very complicated because the body will find ways to prove, you see, you couldn't trust it. I told you, you just couldn't trust. You better did it yourself. So this is how it works. And then we disentangle, and then the brain starts to see the moments you see how good it was that you trusted. So everything starts shifting this way in the way we see the world.
Yeah, that holds so true. I know I went through my own personal journey of that. It's like you want to hold life by the grip and you don't want to let go, and you don't want to trust. It's scary to trust, and then your brain, I love what you said about your brain will find evidence that things aren't working and that things, and to not trust it. That is so true. I've had so many clients where I'll just, we lean into something and then they'll give me an excuse. See, it didn't work. That wasn't the right way. It's like we create our realities to some extent, right? And if we want to not succeed, we will find evidence to make ourselves not succeed, then feel bad about ourselves because we didn't get what we wanted, which further things, I'm not worthy of what I wanted. It's like this pattern interrupt that we have to really work on. I hate to say work on because it feels like, it's another thing to add to a to-do list that feels never ending for most people, but it's the most important thing that you can do, right? Slow down to speed up is what I tell a lot of clients, right?
What was the moment for you where you realized that you can trust beyond yourself?
I think for me and with many women, I was at a point in my business where I was burnt out, very burnt out, trying to do other things. Like I was trying to do other things, but I wasn't fully trusting. I had a really big fear because what got me so much success wasn't going to be the thing that got me the next way because I fell out of alignment. And that's how I got into bioenergetic work, right? That's how I got into energy work is I realized the ways I was doing things no longer felt aligned. And I think for a lot of women, it feels scary because my identity was tied in logic. My identity was tied in lab testing, my identity. And so when you feel this shift, it feels scary to trust that because you don't want to let go of what one got you success, but two that, but that worked. It's comfortable. It was way more comfortable for me to keep doing that. But then things started falling away. And the more the things fell away, the more I wanted to grip onto it until finally I was like, well, that's not working anymore. So I can keep doing this or I can find a different way. And I chose the different way, and that didn't come with sunshines and butterflies. But it came with massive alignment and happiness again. Right. And so, I think that story resonates with a lot of people because it's, I wish it wasn't this way. I wish it wasn't like in so many clients' health journeys. It's not until things get so bad they seek help, rather than when they feel just that misalignment, that nudge to do something about it. But I feel like we have to have our world fall apart for us to get back up and really, either hire the help, look for alternative, whatever it looks like. It doesn't have to be that way. But I understand it too, so that was a little bit on my journey.
I also love how you explain this about things falling away. This is also what we tend to experience or perceive as loss.
Yeah.
Because the brain wants to cling. What we sometimes don't realize that this is the process to alignment, because we have to let go of all what is not working in order to step into that what actually is. And so this process is so interesting because on one hand, it's not easy because we start to feel more, which means also all the range of more feelings, not only the good ones, also the more painful ones.
Yep.
But at the end, when you're in alignment, there is so much more of energy, of flow, of fulfillment, of everything, really. But it comes with investment of time, of energy, of choices, definitely. Yes.
100%, 100%. And I think I do want to emphasize the fact that it is the best thing you can do. And I think it's the hardest. And I think if you stop when things get hard, you're never going to break to that next level. I think as women too, it's like, oh, I got to feel things. Oh no, back away, abort. And it's like, no, we need to heal to feel, or we need to feel to heal. Right. And when we heal, we can unlock that next level of wealth, health, happiness. But it's a process, and a beautiful process. I think it's the best thing that we can do, especially as women, to understand that, to be guided through that. I truly believe in hiring a coach for this. I don't think it's something that really comes easy doing on your own. I mean, I know you can, and I know people definitely, but I think you unlock that next level when you really work with somebody that really understands this and can unlock that for you too, and call out some blind spots, So I love that. I know that people can work with you, and I know that you have, one-on-one sessions, and I know you have a really cool free assessment tool, right? Can you talk about that for a sec?
Yes. So I noticed throughout my own work, but also work with others, that there are specific fears, blocks, emotions that hold us back, definitely as women, but I think it's just human. But because the way we're conditioned, the way we've seen in the history, there is a lot to work through for a woman in the modern day to feel fulfilled, to feel free. So I designed a free assessment test where by filling in specific statements, you can see what might be your biggest blocks holding you back to your purpose and your prosperity. So it's from financial well-being perspective, but it's about the energy, about the emotions. So there are things like visibility, expressing yourself, all that comes into into creating wealth or creating financial well-being in your own life, but of course that ripples also. It's the family life and the communities and so forth. So it's a short 16-question, I believe, test that you can find on my website.
Wonderful. I'm going to link that down below in the show notes, guys. So if you want to go do it, definitely go check it out. I think this was incredibly helpful, enlightening. I love all the little touch points that we talked on. Is there anything else that you want to tell the audience before we bid you adieu?
I just want to say a word of appreciation. I find your work and this podcast very valuable. You just said that some people have to hit the rock bottom to wake up, to see there is another way. But I feel like these kind of conversation is the other way, the softer way to start seeing what are the possibilities and how our lives in the modern day can really get lighter from the yeah, from the weight from the past. So thank you for your hard work, aligned work for all what you do.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I've made my heart so happy. Thank you so much. I'm so happy you were on this podcast, and I hope that listeners really gain value. If you found this valuable, definitely go check her out, go share this, and leave a comment if you felt like this was something that really opened up your heart and your mind in a new way. I'd love to hear it, and looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you again. Bye.